Okay, quick topic of discussion here, and that is Khaaaaaan, Noonien Singh. Recently in one of my videos, I posted something, and I got a comment. I don't remember who posted it or exactly what it was. To be honest, there's quite a lot of comments, so I miss a lot of them. I apologize if I don't reply to everyone. I do tend to miss comments a lot. And the comment stated something about how Khaaaaaan was responsible for the Third World War and the post-apocalyptic world we saw. And I remember reading the comment and going, that's not true. That isn't true. Now that, I believe, may have been posted by somebody that got an earlier viewing of Strange New Worlds than I had. Because recently in Strange New World, bear in mind I'm in the UK and we get it after America. And they've retconned Khaaaaaan. Khaaaaaan was meant to have been a warlord, originally engineered in the 20th century. He did a lot of bad stuff in the 1990s, particularly in 1992 onwards. 1996 he left Earth. Now we see sometime in the early 21st century he's a child. And all this hasn't happened yet, and the timeline of events could easily lead into the Third World War. Now, before I get started on that, Star Trek, Paramount, CBS, whoever, you don't need to keep retconning things like this, and I'll tell you why. This is just my personal opinion. Feel free to disagree with me. It's already fairly established from stuff that we've seen that Star Trek is kind of... The Federation's universe is in what you might want to call a divergent timeline from our own. Sort of. Because there's too many things that have happened or been stated or whatever that don't mesh with the current era. There's too many temporal alterations. There are too many events that take place in the 1990s or early 2000s in various episodes like Voyager going back in time, things like that, that they don't quite line up. So worrying about when the eugenics wars happened and worrying about referencing it as a 90s thing, no one cares. Doesn't matter. Just go with it. It happened in the 90s. I'm alright with that. The whole thing is fictional. Right, that's outer universe, and just bear it in mind. Now, the retcon is... They've retconned Khaaaaaan to a 21st century villain. I don't know why, because as of the making of this video, Strange New Worlds is not finished. I think there's going to be more to it. I think that they're going to carry this on. So this is a speculatory video, not a lore video, just so we're clear. I think they'll carry it on. I don't think we've seen the last of Khaaaaaan Noonien Singh's family lineage and the impact of Khaaaaaan on her and her family and all the rest of it. The Third World War and the eugenics wars being integrated together now is a little weird. Now, it was always entirely plausible that events that happened in the eugenics wars led to future events that would cause the Third World War. That's entirely plausible anyway. And you could say that Khaaaaaan now being in the 21st century versus the 20th century doesn't matter. And it doesn't really matter. Storyline wise, I mean, as long as everything still turns out the same, it doesn't really affect the timeline. But we're talking about the butterfly effect. Maybe by the 23rd century it's not changed anything. But maybe by the 24th century we suddenly learn that Dr. Bashir is executed for being genetically engineered because the rules have become so strict. Things change. I'm saying butterfly effect here. The Temporal Integrity Commission should have altered this back. They say, to be honest, they do say at the end of the episode they're correcting the timeline. So you'd think correcting the timeline from their point of view should be putting Khaaaaaan back where he should be. Making sure the eugenics wars happens when it's supposed to happen and not in this now slightly divergent timeline, because this now implies that Strange New Worlds, Discovery are actually on something of a parallel, albeit very close, continuity timeline to what we consider to be the original Prime timeline. I don't think that they'll fully retcon out the original series. I mean, why would they? But this has left the door open to do it. And I don't think they will, but let me know if you disagree with me in the comments. I don't think they'll go that far. I don't think they'll go as far as to retcon anything that canonically has been seen, but we have seen before that Star Trek is willing to make tiny alterations to the timeline occasionally, sometimes in good faith, other times for maybe storyline purposes. For example, Scotty giving transparent aluminum to some dude in the 1980s because maybe he invented the bloody thing. Maybe he did bloody now, didn't he, Scotty? Anyway, so yeah, the Federation's services have been willing to allow small divergences in the timeline. And we do know there's such a thing as the Temporal Cold War, which gives me chills, because that's an unresolved story. I know it ended in Star Trek Enterprise, but as Q put it, let's not think so linear. We know that Daniel said the timeline seemed to be correcting itself, but who's to say that's exactly what happened? Who's to say he wasn't lying just to get Enterprise out of the business of the Temporal Cold War? Ultimately, different factions, some of which were human, and the Federation, whether we like it or not, they were a faction. They may have been a faction trying to protect the timeline and not gain power from it as far as we know, but they were certainly still a faction. They were a combatant and a member within it. And they too were more than willing and happy to involve humans from the 22nd century in the events. They tried not to involve people from the past whenever possible, but we know they were willing to do so if they had to, because so many things were being altered and twisted in time. The Suliban, the Tholians. Now we know about Romulan agents going back to older Earth, trying to affect the outcome of the Earth-Romulan War, prevent the formation of the Federation. All kinds of wonderful insanity could come from this. And I'm really happy to see that the Temporal Cold War is either still going strong, hot for lack of a better term, or we could just be seeing ripple effects from it. We could be encountering something that was something that the Temporal Cold War did, but has now, maybe it didn't fully correct itself when Daniel said all the timelines straightened back out. Also, timelines. We're talking plural here, that we know there's a multiverse within Star Trek. So again, we're leaving that door open a little bit here, but I do like that the Temporal Cold War might get a better resolution than what it originally got. It remains to be seen, and someone watching this video in 5 years might be going, you bloody idiot, they never even touched on this story again. The Temporal Cold War was done and no one wanted to know anything about it to this video. Entirely plausible, and you're entitled to your opinion, person in 5 years' time. Say hi in the comments. When we look at this, there is so much story potential to create something very different within Star Trek using these little pieces of a puzzle, because time travel opens up so many doors. The one I don't like, and personally I did not like, is the retconning of Khan. I don't like it when Star Trek messes with Khan, one of Star Trek's greatest villains. They did it in Into Darkness, and I'm not saying Into Darkness is actually a bad film, because I'll be honest, I do actually kind of like it. I even like the USS Vengeance, and that's probably almost a Star Trek form of blasphemy to say, because so many people hate it, but I like that ship. It's a nice ship. It's weird, and it was never used to its full potential, but I don't know, I just kind of like it. I don't hate the film, but I do dislike that they used Khan, and I've shared my theory before that that shouldn't have been Khan. It should have been one of Khan's other followers and just left it at that. That's all he should have been. They should have left it, the name they gave him was, it's like, yeah, that's him. He was one of the other Supermen. It didn't need to be Khan. The super blood thing would have worked from any augment, not just Khan. But there was no need to retcon this. But it could be an indication of maybe a future storyline where they'll go back and fix it. It's also an indication of a storyline that they now have that they can play with and do other things with. But there's pretty much no point, again, CBS Paramount, in simply skipping forward the eugenics wars to happen in the 2040s or whenever the hell you want it to happen now, or 2050s, because we're gonna reach those years soon anyway, and then what? You're just gonna keep moving it? Just leave it. Accept that it happened in the 90s and just write that into your story. There are many different ways to mess with that. The Temporal Cold War, though, does open up a lot of storyline potential, and that's something I'm actually kind of excited about. I am very interested to see that, and La'an Noonien Singh is probably one of my favourite characters to have come out of modern Trek. The actress herself is great, by the way. If you follow her on Instagram, she posts some really funny videos. I think it's her and her sister do all these weird dance videos that at first I had no idea what was happening. I didn't know who the hell she was, and I realised I'd followed a Star Trek actress, and I was like, oh, this different, but it's cool. I like it, and yeah, go follow her. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think of all this. Did you like that episode? Do you think it's going in the direction I'm saying, or do you think it'll go in a completely different direction? It was a really bad idea. I'd just like to say a thank you to everyone for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoy making these. If you did enjoy it, please consider giving a like, share, and a subscribe, and maybe checking out the other videos on the screen right now, and in the description box below there are links to my other social media accounts.